All right, a very good morning to you. This is Monday, the 4th of July, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for staying with us here at WESN. This is how we're going to begin the day here on the program AM Prime. Well, of course, you know, today is a holiday, a big holiday in the United States. 246 or so years since they got independence in 1776. It's a big day for them in the United States and for Americans around the world. We join with congratulating them and supporting and taking note of that wherever they are, because you know a lot of people in this country have direct ties with people in the United States or American people elsewhere in the world. So happy holiday to them, 4th of July as they call it. Well, let's tell you what's happening this morning. I can tell you that on the front page of the Newsday we showed you in a little bit 12 more murders, 4 more to go with the 10 which happened as we went into the day yesterday. Crime continues to occupy a big space in our minds and in the media, on the front page of this newspaper as well as the others, I'm sure. Let's tell you what's happening here this morning. We're talking with 2 different attorneys this morning on the same issue, getting their different views on that. Mr. Thane Pierre, who's available to us, he's the company's sort of attorney at law around here, advisor on these matters. And later on, Mr. Jagdev Singh, 2 of the issues. One is the report by the Police Complaints Authority confirming police action, over aggression in dealing with matters on the streets. And the latest investigation said it was from a police bullet that the lady who was killed in the Beetham in those disturbances a couple of years ago, having to do with reacting to the police killings of 3 men in Mova, that it was a police bullet that killed this lady. And the people were saying that they were saying that from the moment it happened, but there were disputations about it from different quarters. But the PCA report has shown that. We see where that goes. So we're talking Mr. Thane Pierre in the first part of the program, and then Jagdev Singh. And the other matter is the matters that the Privy Council has said we shouldn't go no further with some of these corruption issues at the Piarco International Airport construction building, where the DPP says not so soon. He says that it is not a done deal, that these matters could be vacated. So we discussed those 2 matters with those 2 lawyers as we get going. Of course, we go around the region. We may stop in Guyana at first. We talk about a hotbed for investment that is taking place there. On the other side of the hour, we're talking with Ms. Elise Neufel, a 14-year-old young lady who has a discussion going on, as she called the Golden Conversations. We tell you what that is, as well as Mr. Frank Pantin. He's a member of the community of Jehovah's Witnesses in the country. They just won a major battle with the government in the Soviet Union, or in Russia, as a matter of fact. That's what it used to be when it controlled more of those countries there. That's just a glimpse at what is happening in the Ukraine now. But in Russia, they have gotten some reprieve from the repression against people observing that faith there. So those things and more on the program this Monday morning when we come back, so stay with us.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fanzone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white, and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
All right, welcome back to the program. With us now as we kick off, Mr. Thane Pierre. He's an attorney who provides a lot of assistance to us around here. The issue is the report of the Police Complaints Authority confirming where there has been abuse of power by members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services, as well as what I call the culture of denial from police officers and officials when something takes place in which they are involved. Also, the matters on the verge of being, well, thrown away. That's my phrase of putting it. The issue of the charges against people in Trinidad and Tobago arising out of the construction of what is now the airport terminal building at Piaku. The Privy Council said that the matters have lingered all this time. Things have happened, and they've sort of stale-dated, as they call them, in another language. But the DPP is saying not so fast. He says that there are avenues under which these matters could, in fact, go forward. So these things and more in this period, in this discussion now with Mr. Pierre. Good morning, sir. Good to see you. Yeah, I think, okay, I see you having some difficulty hearing, but also you have to unmute your mic because I'm not hearing you either. Let's see if we could sort that out. So you're not hearing. All right. We will have to try and fix it. All right, so let's do the COVID update in the meantime while we try and sort this out. So we tell you what the new positive cases are, the totally recovered patients, and the rest of the list with COVID-19 on this Monday morning. Let's take a look at that. New positive cases reported in the period up to the end of the day yesterday, 55. Well, there's a zero there. It stands for the number of persons who may have died since we put a recess on the checking. Well, this morning that is zero. The total active positive cases in the country, 6,378 at the moment, and 101. That's the number of persons in the parallel healthcare system. Also, the total deaths this far from COVID-19, 4,013. So that's your update with COVID-19 in our midst on this morning, the 4th of July, 2022. All right, we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
The Mary Immaculate Prayer Group and Friends presents its prayer breakfast on August 31st in aid of Monsignor Christian Pereira. The prayer breakfast begins from 9 a.m. at the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception. Cost is only $200. Come support the Cup of Gratitude in aid of Monsignor Pereira, August 31st.
Tickets are available at the parish office of the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception and the parish of Our Lady of Perpetual Help.
Welcome to the 53rd General Assembly of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union from August 15th to 17th at the Magdalena Grand Beach and Golf Resort in beautiful Tobago. This year's theme, Media and Information Literacy. Tobago is a smaller sister in the twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago, nestled in the heart of the Southern Caribbean. Enjoy 116 square miles of historical sites and award-winning eco-friendly land and marine spaces, including the magical Nylon Pool. And you're just a ferry away from a Trinidad adventure. Our warm hospitality, rich cuisine, and unique traditions will inspire you to extend your stay. Tranquil Tobago is where the Caribbean connects for the 53rd CBU Assembly. To register and enjoy discounts on Caribbean airline flights, visit www.caribbroadcastunion.org. Come and experience Beyond Ordinary.
All right, welcome back. Well, here we go. Mr. Thane Peer, attorney at law and forensic advisor. We're talking with these two matters, like I said earlier on. The PCA confirmation of the abuse of police power. Some new material has shown that the police were involved. There was a police bullet that killed this lady in the Beetham during those disturbances 2 years ago, I think, or so, protesting the police killings of 3 men in Laventille, which is still an outstanding matter. Also, the issue about some matters in the courts. The Privy Council suggested enough time has elapsed on these matters, they're not done yet and they should be discarded. The DPP is saying that is not necessarily the case. He's reviewing the file to say that there may be life there still, but on the assumption of that, former Attorney General Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj saying that if we attempt to do that, that will be seen as an abuse of power. So lots of intricacies here, lots of twisted alleys and alleyways involved in it. Mr. Peer, good morning, good to see you.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning to the viewers and listeners of WESN. How are you today?
Well, good, thanks. Let me just ask, what is the role and function of a forensic advisor? That's one of the things by which you identified this morning. What is that?
Well, that title, more or less, I came about that title as a consequence of what I tend to do these days. Now, my background is in forensic science. I am a forensic scientist.
Yes.
I am qualified in the United Kingdom. Consequently, I spent some time providing forensic services in Trinidad and Tobago via the police service. I trained police officers in crime scene management, forensic awareness, etc., and I assisted in developing the capacity and capability of a number of years back in Trinidad and Tobago national security landscape. Subsequent to that, I tend to provide advice to different people who may require from time to time from attorneys at laws and other stakeholders in different jurisdictions.
So that is sort of generally speaking going over what has happened and finding a way to determine what has happened after the fact. What is the connection between that and let's say the place they call the Forensic Science Center where they do autopsies on bodies and so on. That is part of your...
Right, so that is part of it, but I mean, I need to be careful as to where my advice will go, because if you're talking in terms of pathology, then we'll have the expert and an expert forensic pathologist who will determine that. Right. But generally speaking, in terms of the gathering of physical evidence, biological evidence, I can assist in providing forensic strategy going forward. How you see the value of the evidence that may be before you and how would you proceed, provide forensic strategies to go forward.
Yeah, all right, that's helpful, trying to understand what is involved there. So from that perspective, what do you make of the Police Complaints Authority coming back this time and saying that you probably have a sense of how that may have turned out, that to confirm that the death of this lady was as a result of a police bullet, to establish that is the incident in Adita, I believe. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. That was, go ahead.
Well, the information that, before I go there, first to understand how they came out, we need to understand the role and function of the PCA. Now, the PCA by statute is a body, an authority that is authorized to go on a fact-finding mission to investigate and generally to gather facts and then provide a recommendation either to the Commissioner of Police or to the DPP as to what they think should be the path to take. And that is simply it in a nutshell. Right? So what the PCA would do is they'll carry out, they have the powers to investigate, to call in the books, to go into the police service, to call upon other state authorities to provide information that may be able to assist them in ascertaining what may have happened. And I'm saying what may have happened because it is investigative and it is not judicial, nor quasi-judicial. So it's strictly a fact-finding mission.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah.
So thereafter, no, sorry, go on.
I thought you were going to that was your opening statement. I thought you were coming to say something.
Right.
Yeah. On
So
top of that.
essentially, after the PCA conducted the investigation, which I assume will involve the analysis of the evidence, be it biological or physical, collect witness statements, collect other digital evidence as the case may be, they would then come to a conclusion insofar as this is where our investigation points. And then they would then make a recommendation. As to what that value is, I am not in a position to say because that evidence has not been properly analyzed before court.
And so what you're saying is that we should be careful about being too definitive about it because it has not been analyzed, you think? It has to go before the court.
We should be extremely careful, and I am uncomfortable, so to speak, with and I'm just switching to the press release of the Police Complaints Authority with respect to the killing of T.C. Gills, where they use words such as conclusively found and the evidence revealed. I mean, that suggests a certain level of determination, one that I'm not certain that PCA has the remit to do.
Well, that's interesting. You would think that if their investigation suggested, well, not even suggests, says to them that this is what happened, and they want to make a point about the certainty of their investigation. That's why they use that term conclusively, right? You're saying that is up for review.
Well, it's absolutely up for review because from there, where do we go? We carry it to the police service, and the police service, they have the investigative capacity, the real investigative capacity to move forward. The DPP is also involved. Now, it's good on one side because we have an institution more or less that encourages a certain level of public involvement and gives the public a feeling of, listen, we have something somewhat independent, at least the perception of independence is there that they can rely on. But then now we may find ourselves in conflict because the institutions that are really there to make a determination, they may be of a different opinion in terms of the strength, the evidential strength going forward. Because it's one thing to gather information. So I've gathered the information. We know what happened, but what does this information translate to evidence? Evidence that we can put forward in the court. And that is where the DPP gets involved. And he is the final decision maker on that.
So in fact, what you're saying is that the Police Complaints Authority, which is set up to do what it does, is headed by the best of our understanding, a lawyer who's competent, who's very careful a lot of times in what he says and how he says it and when he says it. You're saying that if they use that kind of language, we should not put too much store in that just yet, because in fact it could be challenged and it could be contradicted as it goes up the chain. You say the DPP, and then when it gets to court, that's interesting stuff.
Yes, I'm saying that I'll go further and say that it should not be, those type of language just should not be used, because to me that takes us beyond the remit of the PCA. And the authority, powers and functions of the authority can be found at Section 21 of the PCA Act. And it is absolutely clear as to what their function is, includes the undertaking of inquiry and investigation as the case may be, and provide recommendation to the police commissioner, the commission, or the DPP accordingly. And that is simply what is based on the Act.
Right, but if their eyes and the people who conducted it feel certain that this is what happened, you think they shouldn't say so with all the force and all the might that there is to do that?
I guess it really comes down to the personalities involved, and if they see it necessary to say that as an attorney at law, as someone involved in forensic and understanding how the court ascertains evidence, I am very cautious, and I think we ought to just exercise a certain level of restraint, because at the end of the day, it may undermine the criminal justice system more than we would like it to do.
So it's better if you had said, well, what we see here suggests, rather than to say that it's conclusive.
Perfectly. I mean, simply saying our investigation, we've concluded our investigation, and we have made recommendations to the DPP. That is, to me, that has covered their remit.
Right, but to say that you make recommendations doesn't give enough of an effect to say what is the effect of your investigation. Your investigation suggests that this is what happened, right? And I think he's making a point that from what we have seen and based on who we spoke with and the information before us, this is what we think happened.
Well, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, I'm just looking down the road. At the end of the day, we are coming off of, let's say, a Privy Council decision that spoke to institutions getting involved in things that they ought not to get involved into. And you see what happens down the road. It's all good today where we have sensationalism, because it sounds good and say, yes, we like how that sounds, but looking down the road in terms of how it impacts the court system, I think we need to be mindful and be a bit circumspect in how we operate, particularly from an institutional standpoint.
Yeah, but your use of the term there, it begs a question again. So you're suggesting that the PCA could be accused of being sensational in its conclusion on this matter?
It can be. I mean, I can see that argument, and I believe there are other attorneys who had an issue with their release, right? Particularly, and I'm just going back to release just for the top of my head.
Yeah.
They refer to things such as they deliberately misled the police commissioner. I mean, so what end is that? What is the value of that? The police commissioner is there. He's the administrative head. But one must be mindful that the police commissioner is also the disciplinary head of certain ranks and below. So in terms of saying they mislead him, then that to me suggests that you have gone beyond finding the information, because now let us wait and see if the police commissioner has taken a decision, has disciplined the officers, and then now we can say, well, based on the recommendation of the PCA, the police service took certain actions. But where do we go now if nothing is done?
Well, as people say, that's a different story for a different day for a different kind of people. But your interjection here is very important, very I think useful as to how the thing plays in the public mind. So and the other issue about, they say, based on what they have seen with footage that was captured at the scene, is not sure from where, or the sources of this footage, but that the lady who died in that confrontation or that encounter between police officers and people who were coming out to show their displeasure at the killings of 3 other men some months before that, some weeks before that she died as a result of a police bullet, and the police is on record as having sort of denied that it happened.
Yeah. No, I had a glimpse, I was able to have a glimpse of that press release, and if I'm to use that press release and compare it to the one with PCS, I found that press release to be a bit more circumspect, and I can understand and I can accept how that press release was written. At no point in time did it really say, well, these are our conclusive findings. It said that the investigation was concluded and recommendations were made, simply within the remit of PCA. So as to what exactly they have analyzed and found to be heavily weighed one direction or the other is actually left for the court, or let's say the constitutional office of the DPP and or the police service to determine where they go forward. To me, I think that press release was a bit more circumspect and acceptable in my opinion.
Yeah, and well, I know we can't put that same kind of store in sort of the reporting of and the perspective of people who claim to have been on the scene and saw what happened, because you had the mother of the lady saying, well, you know, this is my second child who's been killed by a police bullet in such and such circumstances, and other people were saying, well, we were saying that all the time because we know that it was a police bullet with a police shot at the lady. And so on. So that is in the reporting, not necessarily maybe in Mr. West's report. Do these things tend to color, at least in the minds of the public, what to hold on to and what to believe? And when a verdict comes out later on that may not necessarily sort of line up with what people have in their minds. Talk about how those things become difficult to come back from and to get a clear understanding of what is the truth and what is not.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I mean, it goes into the realm of bias, subconscious bias, and those other type of biases that there have been studies that went into them in terms of how jurors are influenced. Now, fortunately or unfortunately for us, it takes a while for our cases to reach the High Court for a jury. So at the time when we are before a court, there may be some time and the sensationalism may have decreased a bit. However, we live in an age of technology where at the fingertip you can look and see what was said about this person 10 years ago, right? And that really speaks to the issue that I raised more or less. We need to be careful as institutions, because what do we want? First and foremost, we want justice done. We want fair justice to be done, right? And as an institution, as difficult as it may be, they cannot allow themselves to go into the realm of the social media phenomenon where, listen, it's all about sensationalism, because they have a bigger job to do. And PCA plays a very important role, and with that role comes a certain level of weight as to what they say, because people trust them, which is important, and I think that's good for them. But when they say that, now people are like, oh, well, if the PCA says that, then how then can the police service not charge? In the event that no charges have been laid, then you undermine the police service, you undermine the criminal justice system even further. In the event that they are charged, well, they say, well, wait, PCA said this thing about them, the police service charged them, then they have to be horrible people, and they have to have done it. Decisions have been made based on utterances made by institutions.
Yeah, precisely. So what do you imagine might be taking place even as we speak this morning, given what the police complaints authorities say they have found? How is that now being sort of assessed, being weighed, being sifted to determine what should happen next?
Well, interestingly enough, I would say this. A report from the PCA may provide new information. It very well may provide new information because people may be willing to speak to the PCA before other institutions in terms of trust. But generally speaking, the police service has a responsibility to investigate. And once the investigation is running, we at no point in time would really know what the police service has investigated. And I believe that the police service has the competence, notwithstanding what is out there. The police service has the competence and the capabilities to properly investigate. They have the guidance of the DPP, and I have confidence in police service to fulfill their mandate. Now, in terms of the PCA's report in that investigation, the police service will have a look at it, and if there's something, a line of inquiry that they need to pursue based on it, they will do so. Or they may very well say, well, we have all this evidence, we have everything that is in the PCA book, but when we analyze the information and see how it translates to evidence, the DPP might be saying it is not enough.
Yeah.
Those are the possibilities that we have.
Yeah. So should we have expected that the police service itself would have been conducting its own investigation while the PCA was doing its investigation, or now they were waiting for the PCA's conclusion to then have to investigate further?
Oh, most definitely, the police service has been investigating this from jump. There's no question about that. The police service has been investigating. As a matter of fact, I believe in a report it said Senior Superintendent Joseph Chandul. Yeah. Joseph Chandul is the lead investigator, and Mr. Chandul is someone I'm familiar with. I worked with him a couple of years back, and he's a competent investigator. All right, so this is nothing that the police service investigates. Now, how well they do that in terms of to carry it forward might be the question that the public may want answered properly, but the police service has a responsibility to investigate. And even if it means that they are going to tick a box to say they're investigating, they must investigate any crime perpetrated, any crime created.
Well, so we in the middle of an issue within an issue here, from what you're saying, because there's this report and this conclusion by the Police Complaints Authority, the police conducting their own investigation. Is it possible that the police could come up with a different conclusion from the PCA?
No, anything is possible. It is possible the police service will come with a different conclusion. No, again, that will of course put an issue there where in terms of we have conflicting information, conflicting conclusions. On the police side, they would have the backing of the DPP because they will be seeking advice from the DPP. Right now, we have three institutions at conflict. We have the police service and the DPP on one side and the PCA on the other side. Again, and it goes back to what I said in terms of undermining the public trust in the criminal justice system. Now, we require independence from the institutions, and while we require that, we also require a certain level of responsibility for the journalism. Now, there's a time when the PCA may have to make a statement. And say, well, this is what we found, and that's what the police service says. Or it's a matter of, well, we found this, police service said, yeah, we found this, but it's not enough.
Yeah, I'm afraid there's much more to be gone into here, Mr. Pierre, but we have to move on. But thank you very much for those insights.
You're welcome, Andy. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thane Pierre on that matter, critical and controversial. It is turning out to be. We take a break shortly, and when we come back, we're staying with those issues with Attorney Jagdev Singh. Stay with us.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. find the style number on the tag. Step 2, match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3, search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy your treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program. Well, we spent a lot of time in our previous discussion with Attorney Thane Peer on the issue of the findings of the Police Complaints Authority on the shooting which led to the death of a lady in the Beetham in those protests having to do with the police shooting of 3 people, the fatal shooting of 3 people, 3 young men in the Mova district some months before that. So there's this other issue now. Let's just read some of the headlines surrounding that from the papers in the last couple of days on that. Piarco case in jeopardy. The DPP takes center stage after the Privy Council ruling. That's one headline on June 28th. And June 30th, there are these headlines. The DPP saying it's not the end of the road on that. And he looks at options in those cases to bring those matters to the courts still. And the Office of the Attorney General is saying that the charges against the airport accused still stand. And former Attorney General Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj is saying that to do that, for the DPP to take the action that is being proposed here in his statement, which led to that headline, and it's not the end, Mr. Maharaj is saying that that will be an abuse of the process. So to help us understand these matters in the interest of the public, Attorney Jagdev Singh. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning to you, your listeners as well.
All right. So do you have a position on the matter as to whether the matter is go forwardable or whether they die because the Privy Council has said we should kill them?
Well, I think there needs to be a measure of perspective here.
Yes.
In the sense that I don't think there's an entirely straightforward answer to that question.
All right.
Fact of the matter is that a preliminary inquiry was embarked upon till the end. It finished for all intents and purposes. There was a committal. That committal has now been quashed. There's an open legal question as to whether any of the informations which were before the court, the indictable informations, can survive the quashing of the committal. Bear in mind, Andy, this was not done in the middle of the inquiry, but this was done at the end of the inquiry.
All right.
So there is an open legal question as to whether or not those original charges survive at all. It seems to me that if the DPP wants to move forward, he simply cannot go back to court and restart from the very beginning on those same original charges. It would appear to me that the DPP may have to relay those charges coming some 20 years later. But first of all, before relaying the charges, there is the question as to whether or not he will exercise his discretionary power to do so in the public interest. Now, the public interest is that open-ended question that is not, as I have said before, an entirely straightforward discretion to exercise. It is a multifaceted discretion that requires the consideration of multiple factors, one not outweighing the other. For instance, yes, of course, it is always in the public interest that the guilty are prosecuted. It is also in the public interest that people charged with serious crime, the courts have their say and get their day in court. But it is also in the public interest, in the balancing exercise, that one takes into account the stress, the expense, the time, all of that into account before such a decision can be made. In any event, even if the DPP makes that decision to prosecute and to relay those charges, as I've said, I don't think that the DPP can simply go back to court and proceed and ask for a date to be fixed for the hearing of the original charges. I think those charges have come to an end. They are spent and are no longer in existence. Having said that, the quashing of the committal is not an acquittal in the sense of the criminal as envisaged by criminal practice and procedure. So there's no real acquittal. There is a discretion to be exercised here. The exercise of that discretionary power is amenable to judicial review on public law principles. It is whether it is proportionate and reasonable in the circumstances to the DPP to exercise his power, and what are the factors he's going to take into account and the weight he's going to place on each of those factors.
Right. And
so as I've said, this is really a procedural callaloo. We are treading into very uncertain waters of criminal practice and procedure, hitherto unknown in this country.
Right, and it sets up a conversation within a conversation that we are having, because this is a position taken by the Privy Council in a situation in which we're debating the pros and cons of holding on to the Privy Council. A lot of opinion is saying, let us do that because we repose more trust and confidence in them than we do in the CCJ and so on. And so they are saying the matters have been, in our terms in the media, stale dated. So let's forget that and move on from there. And the DPP is looking to, as you say, looking to find avenues whereby he will not necessarily automatically do that. And this is where Mr. Lawrence Marrage is saying to do that will amount to accusations of abuse of the process. So we are...
Well, there is, you see, in agreement with Mr. Marrage, there is the additional dimension to this, in the sense that there are very serious allegations that the process was compromised by political backdoor maneuvering. The evidence of that seems to be unchallenged. It is a factor that the director is going to have to bear in mind before exercising any power any discretion to restart these proceedings.
Yeah, and you think he is simply trying to see what avenues there may be rather than simply shutting the door on it, to look and see to what extent there remains life in the charges that can be, see what could be retrieved and that all is not lost?
Andy, I think for the benefit of the public that is looking on, this term abuse of process is something that is very regularly spoken about in the media and by commentators. But the public has to understand what essentially is an abuse of process. An abuse of process is the court's ruling that a proceeding which was otherwise irregular has now become irregular, in the sense that, can the person get a fair trial, or is it unfair to try the person? It is how the court, in exercising its supervisory rule over the executive, announces its displeasure, or it's the court attempting to protect the rule of law. That is really what is meant by an abuse of process. So here you have a case with deep political fissures running through it, and there are allegations of serious political backdoor, political interference in this case. Coming some 20 years after these charges were initiated, the men have had to go through the stress and expense of an entire preliminary inquiry, which through no fault of theirs, they made the submission on a very timely basis that, look here, Chief Magistrate, you should recuse yourself. That submission was dismissed in a rather perfunctory manner, and now the Privy Council, many years later, has now held that the magistrate ought to have recused himself, and that the committal was bad. In those circumstances, bearing in mind that, yes, you may have this residual discretionary power to restart the charges and relay them, not restart, but relay the charges. But is it really in the public interest to do so? Is it fair to the men? And I think that is where the center of the discussions must be.
Right. And this is Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj speaking here. My inner feeling as a lawyer in practice for 50 years and knowing how the law is and what development has occurred in the law over these 20 to 30 years with respect to the abuse of process, I think the prosecution will be held to be an abuse of process if it continues. This is RLM speaking.
Yes, I think so, because you see, and let me tell you, Andy, there's a very famous case called the Queen and Horse Ferry Magistrates Court ex parte Bennett. And what they did, in disregard of extradition procedures from Zimbabwe, the British authorities essentially tricked and kidnapped this man and brought him to England. And the House of Lords held, no, we as the court is not going to lend countenance to that sort of executive misbehavior, and we are going to stay the proceedings. Even though technically the man could have gotten a fair trial, they said no. The court, in its primary role of the protection of the rule of law, must denounce that kind of behavior. And I think this case may fall squarely within that narrow supervisory discretion of the High Court.
Yes. And in this case here, the DPP appears to be simply saying, let me cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I have a lot of faith in the director. I think the director will do the right thing what he perceives to be the right thing at the end of the day. But I don't think that that's the end of the matter in any event, because his decision to relay those charges is amenable to judicial review on public law principles.
Yeah, so if he does do that, you say that it opens the door to judicial review of his decision, and that's that we're looking down the road another several months.
We're looking down the road at another trip all the way to the Privy Council. Before the proceedings can even start, before the if the director decides to relay the proceedings, we're looking at another trip all the way to the Privy Council. And I am almost certain that they will get a stay of those proceedings pending the judicial review application.
Yeah, well, I know attorneys, at least, you know, those who are experienced as yourself, don't go on gut feelings, but do you have a gut feeling at all as to what looks possible on the other side of this?
I'm sorry, I didn't get you there.
Yeah, I'm saying I know people like yourself don't go on gut feeling, but I was asking nevertheless, what is your gut feeling about how this thing comes out on the other side, as to whether the DPP will find some means by which to refresh the matters, or whether he would have to conclude that even if there's ground to do that, it's not going to lead too far, and he might as well pull out while it's...
I think that the director is a reasonable man. I think he places a lot of emphasis on the rule of law. I think he knows the law. I think he's going to take proper advice. And I think my gut feeling is the director is going to look at this case and, taking into account the settled factors that he must consider in exercising his discretion, he will... My own view is that the director will say, relaying these charges at this time, after so much time, really is a bridge too far.
All right, well, thank you very much. Well, let me just ask for a quick comment from you on this other matter that I was talking with Mr. Peer about, the conclusion of the Police Complaints Authority about its investigation or that incident in the Beetham, which arose from protests about the police killings of these 3 men in Mova. The PCA has said that they have found conclusive evidence that the lady who was killed in that melee was killed with a police bullet. One of the questions I didn't ask Mr. Pian, and I'll ask you, now there has to be some kind of investigation as to determine which police bullet from which police gun did that before it could go forward. And he was saying that in his view that the statement from the PCA was a bit too strong, because it was talking about conclusiveness of what they found, and that should be sort of tempered a little more. What's your take on that?
Well, perhaps the statement was a bit over-enthusiastic. But you've got to remember, the Police Complaints Authority is a statutory body. They have a statutory mandate to fulfill.
Yes.
Whether the Police Complaints Authority is of the opinion that their evidence is conclusive or not, it really matters not in the context of a criminal prosecution. What really matters is the view of the director. Because even though the Police Complaints Authority may find what they perceive to be strong evidence, that is nevertheless subject to the supervision of the director, because the decision to charge or not to charge is solely that of the Director of Public Prosecutions. So even the findings of the Police Complaints Authority is subject to the Director of Public Prosecutions' supervisory role in this context.
And what would be the substance of what has to come before him for him to determine that? He still has
well,
to
I suppose, Andy, what would have to happen is that the police officers who were there on duty that day, their guns will be subject to ballistic testing. There is an established body of scientific evidence to say that each barrel of a gun, a rifle firearm, produces a unique pattern of lance grooves and striations, so that the bullet can be reasonably matched to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty to that particular gun. Now, the issue doesn't really just end there. Even if you prove that that gun came from that firearm, you're going to have to prove that that firearm was issued to a particular police officer on that day. Now, we know administratively a police officer is not supposed to transfer his firearm to anybody else once that firearm has been issued to him. To me, there's another issue that arises. Whether or not the other police officers who were present that day would have lent assistance or aid or encouraged the other police officer to fire that firearm in circumstances which were unjustified or disproportionate. We don't know the circumstances which brought about the that bullet being fired. So I guess there has to be evidence as to the circumstances in which the lady was shot.
Yeah, and so that now, for that to be determined, a new set of inquiries will have to take place, and we're looking down the road some months still.
Well, yes, I suppose that what will happen now is when the file goes to the director, he's going to say, well, I need evidence of the following, and lay it out for the investigators. So I don't think the Police Complaints Authority statement is the be-all and end-all of the matter.
Yeah, and that is a caution that people, that's a very valuable caution that people should have, particularly on the side of those who take the position that they were saying this all along, that it was the police killed the lady, and so on. So there's a lot of caution still to be advised and to be taken before any conclusive positions are taken. Talking about the people who are involved in it from the point of view of being there and saying they saw what happened and all of that.
Yes, I think so. And I don't think that the Police Complaints Authority, I mean, I know David West very well, and I don't know him to be an irresponsible person. So I don't think David would have said, and also his deputy, Michelle Solomon, I don't think she's an irresponsible person either. So I don't think that statement from the Police Complaints Authority would have been designed to serve a need of any degree of urgency or anything like that. I think they would have had the evidence as to who would have fired the shot, which officer that firearm would have been issued to. And they must have had the background facts which led to the police officer taking the decision to discharge that firearm. So in those circumstances, they could say conclusively that there is some scientific evidence to link that bullet to a particular firearm, which would have been a police-issued firearm.
All right, thank you very much, Jagdev Singh, attorney on these matters. Thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you very much, Andy.
All right, we will take
Always
a break.
good to see you.
Thank you very much. Same here. We will take a break. Come back on the other side of this. We're talking with Mr. Frank Panton about the dispensing of prohibitions against the observance of his faith, Jehovah's Witness, in Russia, and Elise Neufville, something called the Golden Conversations, a 14-year-old young lady mounting a series of discussions on matters of interest to her and people sort of in her orbit. Stay with us.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to the program. With us now, Messrs. Frank Panton and Jude Niles. They are representatives of the Public Information Department of the Community of Jehovah's Witnesses in Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about a matter that involved sort of a reprieve from what Mr. Panton has been discussing with me over the last few weeks about the refusal of the authorities in Russia to allow adherents to this branch of Christianity to practice their faith. Something has happened which has sort of overturned that, and I suppose you could say they're celebrating in a form. So they want to talk about that issue, but the absence of freedom of expression, particularly for people in various forms of faith in a country like Russia. Mr. Panton, Mr. Niles, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, you want to start, Mr. Panton?
Well, Mr. Johnson, I tell you that the history of Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia has not been a pleasant one. For many, many decades, we have endured persecution and hardship in that country. It all began really with the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yes.
The architect of that revolution, Vladimir Lenin, was a disciple of a man called Karl Marx. I'm sure you're very familiar with that famously declared statement, religion is the opium of the people.
Yeah, I thought you said that it was Mao Zedong who said that, but it doesn't matter. Somebody said it. Yes.
Yeah. So the fact is, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but post-revolution, we were actually banned in Russia for the first time. That's in 1917. And things didn't get better over the years. Through the decades, we experienced a lot of hardship in Russia. In the 1960s, things cooled a little bit. And we actually applied for recognition in Russia, but that didn't come to any fruition. But then in the 1980s, something remarkable happened. There was a change in the regime, and a thing called perestroika and glasnost was introduced.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was a movement for a change in policy. And so gradually, the iron curtain policies began to be dismantled, as it were. And finally, in 1991, we received recognition for the first time in Russia. And so in 1992, we held our first international convention in that country. And we had witnesses from throughout Russia and different parts of the world coming. Okay, I'm just giving you a little background.
Yes.
And then in 1992 as well, we began constructing an administrative center in St. Petersburg. I actually had the privilege of visiting that facility unofficially. I think it was in 2014, a wonderful facility, nestled in a very quiet and tranquil area. There we were carrying our work very quietly, storing, producing, and distributing Bible literature. But in the 1990s, the late 1990s, there was also a shift in the regime, as it were. And Jehovah's Witnesses again came under the radar, as it were. And so in the year 2007, they issued a decree or a memo asking the authorities to investigate Jehovah's Witnesses as being extremists, remarkably. And then finally, to cut a long story short, in 2017, they banned our work in Russia, viewing us as extremists, listing us with other extremist organizations, actually terrorist organizations, Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, they banned the work, closed down the website, jw.org, blacklisted our literature, and confiscated our properties, including that facility outside of St. Petersburg. So that's just to give you a little history of what has been happening.
Right. So something has changed, right? So let me just bring Mr. Niles into the picture at this point. So good morning, sir. And what do you think has changed and why?
Yeah.
How do you all see it?
Yes. So we have had 400 of our local registered organizations in Russia that have been shut down, including our places of worship. We have over 320 of our members who have been imprisoned in Russia. Some 40 of them are over 70 years of age. Just to bring it local, actually at the moment, there's a Caribbean national who is imprisoned in Russia. His name is Sean Pike. He was born in Guyana. He studied engineering in Russia. About 13 years ago, he went back to Russia with his wife, Tatiana. And in August last year, they raided their home and Sean was arrested. His bank accounts frozen. Unable to take care of his wife and 2 children, one of whom is ill. And he has been in a detention center in Russia since last year.
So his crime was that he was a witness?
Yes. They raided his home and they evidently found literature of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was arrested, imprisoned. But what has happened, though, is that since 2010, Jehovah's Witnesses have been making use of legal means in order to address this situation. Among those means has been the European Court of Human Rights. We have made 20 applications to that court, dating from 2010 to 2019. And recently, that's just last month, on the 7th of June, 2022, the court gave a judgment against Russia, advising that Jehovah's Witnesses are in no way extremist. Our jw.org website is not extremist. Our Bible, the New World Translation in Russian, is not an extremist publication. And it ordered Russia to return to us all our confiscated property. I just want to make one last point on the property. What Russia did back in 2017 in seizing all the property of our organization is the single largest forced nationalization of private property ever in the history of the Council of Europe. And the European Court of Human Rights has presented a judgment that ordered Russia to return that property.
All right, so let me come back to you, Mr. Pantin, then. So this is a new day, you would say, for the faith in Russia, or you all taking it sort of one day at a time?
Well, I might add, Mr. Johnson, that judgment was issued on the 7th of June, okay? 2 weeks later, on the 20th of June, they passed 2 laws in Russia, okay, removing Russia from the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, okay? So it continues to be a very difficult situation because even though Russia was affiliated with that body at one time, on the 20th of June, they removed themselves. Of course, there's a case that when they banned our work and seized our properties, they were part of that organization.
Yes.
So there's a case. But I mean, as you know, Russia is Russia.
Yeah, and Putin is Putin. So what is the situation as it stands? What do you all understand to be the case?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
What is the situation as it stands now? with
Well, it is pretty much what it was before. We continue to experience the same treatment that we did formerly. Because like I said, even though that judgment was passed, and the European Court of Human Rights is one of the largest courts in the world, as you well know.
Yes.
But they have not respected that decree, that judgment. So we continue to receive the very same treatment, as it were. Yeah.
So Mr. Niles, you're back at square one?
We wouldn't say so. We wouldn't say so because the European Court of Human Rights has 46 member states. Russia, of course, as mentioned by Frank, recently removed itself. But it shows that an independent organization of international jurists looked critically at all of the evidence. The government of Russia was represented in the case. They had a permanent representative to the European Court of Human Rights, and that representative represented their position during the case. It wasn't a default judgment. So they went through in detail all of the accusations in ascribing this label of extremist to Jehovah's Witnesses. And in all respects, they came to the conclusion that there's nothing in our operations that should be a cause of concern for any member of society.
And if I might add, Mr. Johnson, according to the court, Russia violated several articles of the European Convention on Human Rights. 1, Article 9, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. 2, Article 10, freedom of expression. 3, Article 11, freedom of assembly and association. And finally, Article 1 of Protocol number 1, the right to respect for property. So these are outstanding matters that the court has raised. And I'm sure it's being looked at the human rights bodies around the world, because there are fair-minded people on the planet, as you well know, including yourself.
Yes. All right. I mean, there's much to be gone into here, but we have another segment to do before we get off the air this morning. And we will stay, I will stay on this for some time. We'll come back from time to time and see what progress has been made. If not, how you're all continuing to prosecute the matter. But thank you all very much, Mr. Pantin. And
thank you kindly. Yeah. Appreciate your hospitality, sir.
Thank you very much. No problem. We'll take a quick break. Have a good day. When we come back, Elise Neufville on the other side. Stay with us.
The Mary Immaculate Prayer Group and Friends presents its prayer breakfast on August 31st in aid of Monsignor Christian Pereira. The prayer breakfast begins from 9 a.m. at the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception. Cost is only $200. Come support the Cup of Gratitude in aid of Monsignor Pereira, August 31st.
Tickets are available at the parish office of the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception and the parish of Our Lady of Perpetual Help.
Here with Andrew Lewis, sailor. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
The most beautiful thing about sailing, in my opinion, is it's where it was, originated from. It was a form of transport that was allowing people to connect different parts of the planet. And sailing today has become many different ways of life, but I have chosen the pathway of the Olympic Games.
For women to feel confident, we have to feel sexy. That doesn't mean outward apparent. It could be a mental state, it could be a physical state, it could be an emotional state. And if you choose to be liberal, and if you choose to be conservative, that is up to you. I just give you the space to choose whatever you want to do.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it.
It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
FanZone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back to the program. Well, here's how this story began in the Newsday, the edition Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. That's last week. When Elise Neufville was a child, she knew she wanted to change the world. Now 14, she hopes to start doing this with her website and the content of this that she posts. Her website, The Golden Conversations, was created to offer a safe space for people to voice their experiences on social issues such as racism, sexism, or assault of any kind. And there are some points that she's put out here in this organization that she's founded and working with. She said, we would try to have a passion project that I would try to work on for a year. And in between, we would hold fundraisers to help fund other projects and charities. She also wants to incorporate other things such as offering ways to encourage more recycling and educating people of the effects of pollution. She said members of her team will help in gathering information, writing articles, and coming up with new ideas. With time and youth on her side, she believes her website can blossom into something that will bring change. And she says, I feel like we are the only people that can help the country and those and others right now because adults are already set in their ways. Elise Neufville is with us for the next few moments. Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so let's talk about what led you to form, this organization, set up this website, and so on. I suggested some of the ways here, but let's hear it from you.
Okay, well, initially, I just wanted to create a space where people can feel free to voice their opinions and just somewhere where everyone can be free and not have to worry about the society standards and just feel safe. So I wanted to help others by creating this space for them to express themselves and connect with charities and start fundraisers and projects to donate to the people in need.
Right, because you say, let's tell our viewers that. So you're a Form 3 student at St. Joseph Convent in Port of Spain, and you say you want to raise awareness. In addition to the website, you want to create physical spaces, safe spaces with other secondary school students throughout the country where young people can get together and share their experiences. Is that happening to the extent that you expected it would?
Well, yeah, it is. It's forming together. It's coming together really quickly. This has been in the works since 2020.
Yeah.
And it just started with a small group of my close friends, and now it's open to the public, and people are actually reached out to me to join and are interested in it. So, I think it is.
Yeah, and you have meetings virtually and you'll discuss things.
Yeah, we do, but not with all the members as yet, because we just want to keep it with the people that are still because we're still starting, we're still rebuilding the website. So we want to do that first, and then we will have the meetings with all of the club members.
Yeah, I think I see something in here which saying that, so you meet every month, is it? And as you meet, different issues come to the table, but you say you will meet virtually, but different issues come up and you take note of them, and how you decide on which ones to go forward with. And
Well, we have everyone fill out a form on what they would want to discuss, and from there the team and I will just go over it and decide on which one is the most important or which one we should discuss.
are you encouraged by the response you're getting so far?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so you have interest in such things as recycling, and talk about some of the other things that you personally bring to it.
Well, I'm just very passionate about saving the world, because I remember when I was in primary school, I always used to try to get an environmental club started and just doing a lot of charity donations. And I'm very passionate about writing as well. So I express my thoughts and my feelings through my writing. So I had written articles about the different topics like depression and anxiety, feminism, and classism, and just generally about society. So I think with that, and also the drive for change, that's what I think I could bring, like why I can do this.
Yeah, so you have a sort of a wide area of interest in things, because the article here talks about, well, physical things. You talk about pollution and recycling, but you say you also are interested in matters of the mind, as you put them, or as I put them. What you say, anxiety and depression and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think those matters are really overlooked, especially since, we grew up in a generation where people right now, their mental health is very important, and it's been affected by the pandemic especially. So I think we need to talk about it, because it's affected a lot of children and adults, and this is just overlooked a lot of the time. So
what is your experience with that? How do you know that people have been affected sort of mentally?
Well, my friends definitely have, and I have as well, because I struggled with I still struggle with really bad anxiety, and I was in like a depressive state for a good while, but with the help of my friends and family members, I was able to get out of it. But I think a lot of people don't have access to that safe space with certain, like their loved ones or family members, because a lot of them don't understand what they're going through. So I think it's important that we can provide that for them.
And you do that. You find that some of your friends, you find that your circle of friends and relations is expanding because of what you're doing?
Yeah, because a lot of people, you don't know what people are interested in unless you speak up about it, because they might not think that anyone else is wants to talk about it. But when you bring up the topics, they seem very interested and want to help.
Yeah. I like the last paragraph in this article in the news here. You say, I feel like we are the only people that can help the country and those in others right now, because adults are already set in their ways. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, so I believe a lot of adults, they are willing to help, yes, but they don't understand as well as we, like our generation will, because they're not our age living in this day and age right now. So they won't understand as well as we do, but they do. I know a lot of them want change, but most of them are set in their ways. And even if they want to help, some of them still see it from their perspective from whenever they were kids or teenagers. And I think since we're so fresh and living right now, we have a better idea of how to go about doing it, and we are the future, so we have to start from there.
Yeah. I'm wondering, so you're going to St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, that is
No, I think she got it wrong. I'm going to St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph.
It's St. Joseph?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, well, that's even better. But so my question really is, so what is the discussion between yourself and your parents, because you're going to a school from which people expect great things from people who go there. Is there any sort of discussion with you about how much time you're spending in doing this, as opposed to trying to get distinctions and scholarships and so on?
Well, I've always been a straight A student,
yes.
And this has never really affected my grades. If anything, it gave me a lot more time to practice my writing skills. So that, and also with regards to social studies and history, that helps me a lot. My parents are just very supportive about it, but they know that I can balance my time, and I don't think my grades have ever dropped, so I think that's why they allow me this time.
Way to go, Elise Nouvelle. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We would check in on you from time to time to see how things are going with the group and with yourself. The golden conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, and that's our broadcast for this Monday morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank all our guests, particularly this last young lady here, Elise Nouvelle, 14 years old. We'll tell you in half an hour. The guys will come in for today's edition of Talking Point. That's Shah and Small. But for now, of course, there'll be news there, I suppose, before we get to them. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. I'm going to say we'll see you tomorrow, but the next time you see or hear from me, I'll be reporting to you from Suriname, where the CARICOM Heads of Government conference is taking place. Well, it began last evening and will continue for a couple of days in the rest of the week. But stay right here where you are at WESN. You could check us out on all our social media platforms, including you could send your email to amprime@wesncc.com.